Morning, welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, March 16th, 2021, 9:01 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Commissioner and Vice Chair Gary Edwards and Commissioner Carolina Mejia are present through our Zoom meeting today. We have County Manager Miro Chavez and a host of our Prosecuting Attorney Elizabeth Petrich and a host of staff that will be addressing particular items on today's agenda. The public can attend by following along on our Thurston County YouTube channel or join by conference call at 360-252-9020. The PIN is 1234. We start with item number one, our standing item, which is a COVID-19 update with public health. And
I don't see Shirley or Dr. Abdelmalik online. They might be joining us here in a couple of minutes, sir.
Okay.
And also, I don't see Keel Lee on the homeless strategy join us yet either.
Okay. Then let's go to the agenda for this afternoon's meeting. And we'll pop back to public health and homeless strategies when those folks arrive.
I think, hold on, I think I'm, hold on. I'm sorry. Yeah, Shirley just joined us. If you'd like to go back to item number one.
Morning, Shelley.
Good morning. Shall I jump into the report?
You're up. Item one, COVID-19.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, good morning, commissioners. Today is day 405 of Thurston County's activation of our public health emergency. In Washington State, there have been 350,506 people that have tested positive for COVID-19 since this pandemic began, with 5,135 Washingtonians that have lost their lives. Here in Thurston County, 7,507 of our residents have tested positive since the beginning of this pandemic, with 124 new cases reported in the last week. That puts us at 95.9 on the governor's risk assessment dashboard over the last 2 weeks for our population size. 72 Thurston County residents have died. Unfortunately, we had another loss this week here in Thurston County. 343 people have been hospitalized due to COVID-19 complications since the pandemic began, with one new hospitalization occurring in the last week. So COVID is still very serious and very much out there in our community. Our hospital capacity in the Western region, which includes Thurston, Lewis, Pacific, and Grays Harbor counties, show that 88% of our acute hospital beds in our region are currently full, with 8.2% of those beds occupied by COVID patients and 14.9% of staffed ICU beds occupied by COVID-19 patients. Our test positivity rate is 2.6%, so that is good. And I would like to share that we strongly encourage that people continue to get tested if they are exposed to someone with COVID-19 that they know about, or they're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19. We do have testing widely available in our community. I do want to share that the drive-through operated in partnership between Thurston County Public Health and Providence Health and Services located in Hawks Prairie will be standing down at the end of this month. We continue to have many options for community-based testing for free, to include Thurston County Public Health's mobile testing sites at Rochester Organization of Families, the Evergreen State College, inside the city of Lacey, Union Gospel Mission, as well as many other places in the community, which people can learn about on our website. In terms of outbreaks, we've had 50 congregate care outbreaks since this pandemic began, 5 that our staff are currently investigating. Shifting to vaccine data in Washington State, in Thurston County, 79,217 doses to Thurston County residents has been administered. We're very happy about that. 19.5% of Thurston County residents have received a first dose, and 11.87% are fully vaccinated. So that is excellent news. We're making a lot of progress. Here in this last week, Thurston County providers, including Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, received 9,710 doses of vaccine over this last week, and 3,947 doses were administered at various events by Thurston County Public Health, as well as our Thurston County partners and many volunteers from United Way. We had 4 days of successful events at South Puget Sound Community College, which was our first weekend operating that event. And I just want to say a special thanks to all of the volunteers and staff that made that possible, and give a special shout out to our friends from CPED, specifically Brett Burris, Jeremy Davis, and Polly Stoker, who made both the South Puget Sound Community College event as well as the Thurston County Fairgrounds event very successful. They did all the planning for that and helped set us up for success before returning back to their regular jobs. So much gratitude to them. In terms of our vaccine outlook here in Thurston County this week, we are very happy and optimistic about increases in supply, as well as changes in the vaccine phases here in Washington State. Thurston County expects to receive 11,380 total doses over this next week. That's for all providers in Thurston County that provide vaccine. That's 8,740 first doses that will be administered and 2,640 second doses. Of that allocation, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services will be administering 5,140 doses of vaccine this week, and we will be sharing our vaccination clinic schedule with the public here shortly, but I will let you know that we plan mass vaccination events again this week at South Puget Sound Community College on Wednesday 3/17, Thursday 3/18, Saturday 3/20, and Sunday 3/21, as well as several other public health and social services clinics, both at our Lilly Road and at community locations. And in terms of the phases that are changing this week, we have been in completing phase 1A, high-risk health workers, as well as 1B tier 1, which has included people over age 65, educators and childcare providers that were added last week, and people living in multi-generational households. As of Wednesday, even more Thurston County and Washingtonian residents will be eligible for vaccine, to include high-risk critical workers, especially those that work in certain congregate settings. And that includes groups such as agricultural workers, food bank, grocery store workers, food processing workers, law and justice partners, transit workers, remaining first responders, as well as people who are pregnant and people with disabilities that put them at high risk for COVID-19 complications. And with that, I will pause there and answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Mejia, any questions for Shelley?
Yes, I was wondering about the events this weekend. Are they targeted towards specific phases, or are they just open to everyone who qualifies?
For this upcoming week, we are going to be targeting some of those events to specific groups, and we'll be sharing that schedule later today.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes. Shelley, do the numbers that you gave as far as the vaccinations, does that number include all the private groups that the health department was not affiliated with?
It does not include the direct federal pharmacy allocations. It does include all the vaccines that run through Washington State Department of Health to Thurston County vaccine providers. We don't have the federal allocation to pharmacies yet, so we encourage people to please look at findyourphasewa.org and vaccine finder to see the list of locations in Thurston County and elsewhere that have available appointments, and that does include pharmacies.
But at some point, we'll be notified of how many vaccinations were given out by those organizations as well, so we can adjust our percentage.
We won't adjust our percentage based upon those numbers. That determination at this time is allocated by the state. So Thurston County Local Public Health currently does not have the ability to make those kind of adjustments. But we do strongly hope and expect that the information about the direct federal allocations will soon be shared in a more timely manner that will help to aid our planning and help to guide our community into where they can get current vaccines. At this time, I don't have the federal allocation information to share for this week.
Okay, thank you.
Shelley, I was taking Commissioner Edwards' point to be that just in terms of our overall aggregate numbers that we tell, when we tell the community we've got 40,000, Thurston County residents vaccinated with first dose. I mean, we can't do that until we get those numbers. And so we're not giving like up to the minute stats, and we'd like to if we could.
Oh, my apologies for misunderstanding that question and comment, Commissioner Edwards. I actually can shed some light on that. So when I talk about the doses administered to Thurston County residents, that does include, in terms of the percentage vaccinated and the total vaccinated, that does include allocations that come directly from the federal government. Because every provider in the state of Washington, regardless of where they get their vaccine, is required to report it into the Washington Immunization Information System. And that's where all of that data comes from. So we do know that.
Shelley, my only question relates to the phase 3 guidance that came last week. And it was like geared to commercial activity, and it really didn't address social activity. And at first I didn't see anything referencing it. And then I saw, looking at multiple articles, I saw a reference in one of the articles that the state was going to be releasing additional guidance on that topic later, which I assume is this week. Is that accurate, or is there not going to be any changes? Do you know?
No, that is accurate to the best of my knowledge. I believe that we will be getting additional information and guidance from the governor at some point this week. Okay,
thank you. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you so much.
Let's go to item 2, if we have Keely Marino.
Yeah, sir, I have been in touch with Keely, and she says she's been having issues connecting this morning where she's at. Her internet is unstable. I asked her to provide some quick update for me to share. And she stated that she's working on the Regional Housing Council agenda for this coming Tuesday. There is a regular meeting, and where she's going to be dealing with providing an update related to the approach related to the RV parking, as opposed to have a single solution somewhat of on the spread. So that is she's what she would like to report this morning, and that's the only thing that I have on item number 2.
Okay, unless there's questions for the board, let's go to the agenda for this afternoon. Tuesday, March 16th, 2021, Board of County Commissioners meeting will be called to order at 2 o'clock. We have public hearings and a Transportation Benefit District meeting following. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice Chair Edwards. There'll be a motion presumably regarding the agenda for today and board meeting minutes for March 9th. There will be an opportunity for the public to address the board with 4 minutes allocated for public comment. And anything that needs to be addressed right now about that, County Manager.
Yes, sir. You may be receiving public testimony related to the permitting fees. And I believe Mr. Perry might be coming and provide additional testimony on that in addition to the emails you have received from him directly. Also, you might be receiving public testimony from the Lawrence Lake Management District Committee members. And that might be related to an item that is in your agenda this afternoon to issue a request for proposals to secure the services to treat some of the weeds and vegetation within the lake. The Lake Management District from Morris Lake Committee sent you a letter yesterday, and I hope you had the chance to review it, and I believe that will be the gist of their testimony this afternoon.
Anything from commissioners on this or public comment related items?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Lake Management Districts appeared in my dream last night, so I know that's a bad sign. So.
There you go. So that will be a 4 minutes of testimony then. Well worth it.
Okay, County Manager update, item 2.
I really don't have any follow-ups other than I went to the South Puget Sound Community College mass vaccination site, and I have to echo what Shelley stated. It was just run like a well-oiled machine, and the planning behind it, the volunteers. I had the opportunity to meet the Lindsay, I can remember the last name, from United Way. She's coordinating all the volunteers, and I continue to be impressed. At least those individuals who received the vaccine leave with a smile. And that is good. I think we're moving forward on doing what we need to do to our citizens and related to issuing the vaccines. And I will encourage the board members, if you have the time, to swing by to one of those mass vaccination clinics to see the operations by yourself. So it's well worth time spent.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to our consent agenda for this afternoon. 3A is Central Services, sole source purchase from Modern Machinery.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. You received this item last week, and this is for your consideration. Approve a sole source purchase from Modern Machinery to buy a piece of a part for a piece of equipment, which is the F4067. That's a paver machine where the screed has been failing, so that needs to be replaced. And back in 2009, we purchased this paver, the paving machine, via a competitive process and this outfit is the only one who provides that piece of equipment, and as well as the outfit is the only one who can provide the parts we need to do. You heard additional perspective from Bruce Brombaugh last week. If you have any questions, please let me know. We're available.
Questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, me neither. Thank you, Bruce. Item 3B, Public Works, abolishment of 3 solid waste petty cash funds.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item last week for your considerations to abolish 3 petty cash funds in the solid waste division of Public Works. And the reason is we no longer have the need to hold cash on those petty cash accounts since most of the transactions are done via a credit card. And you asked last week what would be the amounts of those 3 petty cash accounts. Is 3-1 at the Waste and Recovery Center, which was at $60. The other one is at the Rochester drop box, $25. And the other one is the Rainier drop box, another $25 for a total of $110 between the 3.
Questions there?
No, sir.
Very straightforward. Okay. Let's go to 3C. Commissioners item reappointment to Capital Area Regional Public Facilities District Board.
Yeah, I believe you had discussion, commissioners, to consider reappointment of Mr. John Gerson for the Capital Area Regional Public Facilities District as a regional representative from the term of March 1st, 2021 to March 1st, 2025.
Any comment or question on this reappointment?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Nothing. Okay. 3D is our voucher list. Are there any questions or comments from the board on voucher items? Hearing none. Okay. Then we'll go to department items. We're setting a public hearing for an ordinance to amend Chapter 2.02.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. I briefly mentioned to you last week that you will see this item come in your agenda. And this is for you to consider setting a public hearing for you to receive public testimony on April 13, 2021 at 3 in the afternoon here at the courthouse on Building 1, 280 to accept public testimony on a proposed ordinance related to the Board of County Commissioners meetings. This will include amendments to the different sections of Chapter 2.02, which includes official meeting room, regular meetings, special meetings, minutes, executive sessions, adjournments and continuances, attendance of meetings by telephone and video conferencing, public records index, and so on and so forth. I think this is a good opportunity to consolidate all your meetings and how you, the board, needs to will operate in the future. It's just this is an attempt to consolidate all that in a single document. You reviewed this on a couple of occasions. You provided comments and during executive sessions. Those are reflected on that. And now it's time for the public to review those this ordinance and provide you with comment via public hearing.
Commissioner Mejia, anything on this item?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, no, sir.
Okay. I don't have anything either. Item 5 is Public Works. Request for proposal for rate design and financial advisory services for water and sewer utilities.
Yeah, Commissioners, you reviewed this item last week, and this is related to a couple of steps the board has been involved related to a potential consolidation of all the utilities, including the Grand Mount, Thomaston, Boston Harbor, and Olympic View. There was a feasibility consolidation study that was completed back in 2020. And this particular study was related to whether that is legally feasible to consolidate the different utilities into a single one. That was deemed to be within the legal bounds. So the next step, I believe the board directed to see what is the financial impacts that will be. And that is really along some of the feedback that you received from the Boston Harbor members of this utility, where via a briefing, they ask many financial questions related to this potential consolidation. So this item for you is to authorize Public Works to request a request for proposals for a rate design financial advisory services in water and sewer. Also, this study will include a review of the current fees that we have on all the sewer and water utilities here in the county. So it's two elements of that. By the board authorizing the issue of request for proposals, you are not committing to a consolidation study. I just want to make sure that is the case, but I think it will give you the enough information and answer really some good questions from the Boston Harbor members related to the financial impacts. Public Works staff is available here to answer any additional questions related to this item.
Okay, Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Okay. Yeah, we went through this pretty thoroughly last week. If the public wants to check that out, there's a lengthy discussion about it on the 9th of March in the morning. Thank you, Tim. Okay, item 5B. That was 5A. We're going to go to 5B. Request for proposal for Long Lake and Lawrence Lake submerged weed control contract.
Yeah, this is a yearly update to request a request for proposals to secure the services of the contractor to provide submerged weed vegetation control in Long Lake and Lawrence Lake. So there's items B and C, 5B and C. This is a part of the work plan, I believe, from the Long Lake and Lawrence Lake management districts. But also, I would like to probably pause a little bit in here related to the letter that you received from the Lawrence Lake committee. And I don't know if I know that Tim was included in this letter. Maybe this will be a good opportunity for you to address some of the elements outlined in that letter, Tim.
Absolutely. Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager with Public Works. So as Ramiro mentioned, this RFP is to help us fulfill the obligations of the work plans for both LMDs, for Lake Lawrence and Long Lake LMD. We currently have a 5-year contract that was developed prior to any of us being here, I believe, back in early 2016, that we saw issues with early on in terms of some of the pricing for the herbicides and accountability, flexibility, those types of issues. So we have developed an RFP to address those issues. The RFP was developed in conjunction with Public Works procurement and contract specialist. As an LMD, the legal structure of an LMD is such that the county takes all risk for managing these contracts. And if you can imagine, applying herbicide to a public water body, there is risk there. We developed that RFP to provide public safety and address those issues. Regarding the letter from Lake Lawrence specifically, there was an attempt to make sure that this was a transparent process and that they were included in that process. I became aware of some concerns that they had on March 2nd, I believe, or a day or two ahead of that. And there was a meeting held with them to discuss those issues. Based on that meeting, I feel very confident in the RFP that it meets the objectives of what we're trying to achieve. It provides that flexibility. It provides flexibility in terms of if their scope should change. It provides a solid pricing tool that if the volume of the lake should change, the depth of the lake should change, that we'll have the tools necessary to adjust accordingly. And it has an accountability metric just in terms of it being a 1-year contract. We prefer a 1-year contract to build in that accountability for the contractors. So with that, I would take any questions that the board may have.
Commissioner Mejia?
I have no questions at this time.
Commissioner Edwards?
Not at this time.
So Tim, Ramiro was referencing a letter. I haven't seen this letter, so and you're addressing it at a high level. So I'm like, what exactly was the concern? You're answering the letter, but I'm not sure what the questions were.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to highlight if you like.
Okay.
Yeah. You receive a letter from the Lawrence Lake LMD Budget Committee, that's the title, and it's related to the request for proposals. So let me read you through, and I think it will be good to, to read. Say, our Lawrence Lake LMD currently herbicides treatment contract expires March 31st, 2021, prior to the typical spring treatment cycle for Lawrence Lake. In the past, these contracts were of 5 years duration, mirroring our permit from the Department of Ecology. As discussed with county staff, the expiring contract had numerous issues pertaining to the budget cost metrics. Because of these past issues, we asked county staff to involve our committee members with issuance of the request for proposals contract. Discussions of our 28 October 2020 LMD meeting recommended that a draft RFP be distributed prior to the December holidays to fully vet comments from the LMD constituents and required county agencies. This recommended plan was largely ignored, resulting in a delay issuance of the request for proposals. On 2nd February 2021, that's actually how it's written, an initial draft RFP was finally provided to the LMD constituents for review. Comments were requested, provided, and discussed with county staff 8 February 2021, following Super Bowl weekend. During the review, it was unilaterally determined by county staff that the draft RFP was not viable owing to the proposed duration of the resulting contract, 5 year. Basically, the draft RFP and comments review sessions was futile. After several requests, a second RFP, 1 year, was subsequently provided to the LMD Budget Committee for review on 24 February 2021, with comments requested and provided 28 February, 4 days. It should be noted that our Budget Committee is comprised of volunteers, half of which are full-time employment, some involved out of the area travel. The relevance of this duress imposed by a quick comment turnaround cycle that require weekend review by both RFPs. However, comments were again provided during the second RFP review with county staff, and it was revealed that comments provided by the LMD Budget Committee will not be included in the RFP. It had already been approved by the Director of Public Works in final preparation for the Board of County Commissioners approval. Again, an exercise in futility. The recommendations in this letter is the LMD Budget Committee's strong recommendation that comments provided to the county staff be presented to the Board of County Commissioners for inclusion in the RFP prior to its release. Of paramount importance are comments regarding the cost matrix provided in section 6.0 is specifically designed to correct previous contractual shortcomings. Section 6.0, comments should be vetted with comments from our sister LMD Long Lake, and the resulting RFP contract applies to both LMDs. Would recommend a contract with multi-year options. Ideally, such a vehicle will reduce administrative costs and incentivize performance. Future contract cycles should commence early, receive intra-county review before release of the LMD as a draft, and incorporate lessons learned as appropriate. Note, it is important that initial weed treatment occurs in early spring to be most effective. As we are now late in the RFP contract process, due consideration for accelerated request for proposals contract release schedule is recommended. So, and I believe Tim outlined some of the comments in this letter.
Just add real quick, if I may, that when we received this letter yesterday, it was forwarded on, I forwarded on to the Long Lake president and one of the other steering committees so that they were aware of it. I think Lake Lawrence probably forwarded it to them as well, but it is important, and we have concerns because as they are mentioning at the end of this letter, the timing of these applications are very crucial, and any delay in this could put some of those treatments in jeopardy. And I guess I would just, under the recommendations, another concern that we have and had with the recommendations, and they were made in good spirit and taken under consideration. There was a matrix in there that if you think of each of the lakes, there are treatment units that are polygons, individual polygons within the lake. And the request was that we receive pricing per polygon unit in there. The problem that we had with that is, depending on the time of the year and rain cycles, the depth of those polygons could change considerably, which changed the volume of herbicide that needs to be applied, which makes it very hard to do pricing like that. So we had concerns with that and chose not to incorporate that in. And again, the specifics of the RFP, what we're requesting, are going to give us, the LMDs, the tools that we need to make informed decisions as we negotiate a contract.
One of the things that came up in Black Lake was the fact that because they weren't a lake management district, they were able to use herbicides that weren't approved by Thurston County, and that we may or may not, for whatever reason, they were subject to a different set of parameters, I think, that state set, Department of Ecology. And since these two lakes are lake management districts, I assume that they're not using the same herbicides. They're using things that are approved by Thurston County's rules. Paula is nodding her head, so that's good. And then with the phosphorus treatment, I guess, we got into this with Black Lake, so I learned a little bit about it, just enough to be dangerous. But what is it that they're going to be doing here this spring to treat that issue?
I'll defer to Paula on that.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Paula Cracknell, Aquatic Resource Specialist, and I am the contact person for the Long and Lawrence Lake LMD treatments. The phosphorus treatment, what we are planning is to do a 2-step treatment with aluminum sulfate and also with Phoslock. So the aluminum sulfate will act as a binder to the lake sediment, which will prevent phosphorus from precipitating into the water column during times of stratification. And the Phoslock is a bentonite clay-based compound, which will bind to the available phosphorus in the water column itself. So it's a 2-step treatment to try to limit what's coming in from the sediment, and as well as capture what's in the water column.
And aluminum sulfate, is that different than the alum that we kept hearing about with Black Lake?
No, alum is the shorthand version for aluminum sulfate.
Okay, so these lakes have been able to save the money to do this type of treatment, because I know Black Lake, the whole issue was they needed us to increase their rates so that they could finance. In fact, they had to issue bonds, I think, to do it. I know it's a much bigger lake, but these lakes have been able to manage that cost of that.
Yes, absolutely. Long Lake has been saving money to put into a reserve account specifically for phosphorus mitigation. And after the intense algal bloom that happened in 2020, we worked really closely with different contractors to just kind of get an idea of what kind of treatments are available. So our RFP is based on our conversations with these contractors, and as well as looking at a model that Kitsap Lake did, and trying something different that will hopefully yield great results for the phosphorus control in 2021.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board following up what Ramiro went through?
Could I add one more piece of information, Commissioner.
Go ahead.
And this is just for for information for the viewing public. You stated the county approves those chemicals. Yes, as the Board of Health has the authority to provide approve what we call prescriptions. And those prescriptions are vetted by a group within public health that includes members of the public and professionals that assess all the many different prescriptions before it comes to a recommendation for the Board of Health to approve. So that is really vetted through a very strict process, I believe, and everybody has the opportunity to go through that and see what prescription may be approved by the Board of Health. As I recall, maybe 2-3 years ago, the Lone Lake Management District submitted a proposal to for the Board of Health to consider, went through that process, and the Board of Health approved a new prescription. So that's really just how the prescriptions are approved here in Thurston County.
Chair, I have a comment, please.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess this would be to Tim or Paula. At this point, at least the Lawrence Lake Management Group isn't happy with the process that has taken place here for one reason or another. My concern is that we probably could not take action and change a prescription in a timely enough fashion to get the application that is needed done in this year's cycle. Is that right? If they were unhappy about a prescription?
That's correct. It does take a bit of time to go through that review process. I don't believe that either of the steering committees have concerns with the herbicides that are being used, or at least I'm not aware of. I see Paula shaking her head. So I don't believe that's an issue. I do believe it's more of an issue of process and feeling like maybe they should have been included earlier on in the process, and perhaps just unclear expectations regarding transparency versus actual development of some of these processes. So definitely some communication improvement that can be made, but I don't think it's an issue with the herbicides themselves.
How about with finishing the application itself or getting it done in the time frame as desired? Do we have time to adjust and deal with the concerns from the LMD and still get the application done? That's, I think, where we're at.
Yeah, in our opinion, no, we don't. And the timeline that we are currently working under is somewhat tight already. I think it's reasonable and will allow for the spring treatments to be done. But if we were to pull it off the agenda and then resubmit it, we would, in my opinion, really be putting that timing in jeopardy. And that timing has to do with the growth cycle of the plants that are in the lake. So there isn't a lot of flexibility in that.
Romero?
Yeah, reading the letter, I think it's more of a question related to a procurement process, and the county needs to follow some of the procurement processes. As Tim stated, I believe county staff has the obligation to protect the county on any potential risk related to any contractual obligations. And whether it's a 1 year or 5 years, if you heard from Tim, the 5-year commitment makes it complicated because you're locked in on any particular fees and provider. On a yearly basis, it gives you more flexibility. So I think that's probably what the comments that I get out of that letter is more of related to a procurement process the county has. versus the actual application. And question for Tim, I don't think Lone Lake has provided any comments related to the RFP, right?
Not that I'm aware of. I had a phone conversation with Eric Casino yesterday afternoon, who sits on that steering committee, because he is who I could reach immediately, and I wanted to make him aware of this and to see if they had any concerns. And I don't believe they have the same concerns.
In the same RFP is same structural element for both LMDs, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And Eric Casino was with the Long Lake Group, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it looks like we're kind of in a bind, and to get the job done, we're going to have to move forward, because if we stop the process to adjust for concerns, then we're not going to be able to do anything at all. So if there are concerns, it looks like we're going to have to address them in upcoming cycles. You know, sometime after this spring, I take it. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I think that's right. I would share that we don't have the same concerns regarding the RFP or the contract. We feel that it's sound, but there's definitely an opportunity to make sure that that we're engaging with them. But yes, I think it's very important that we move this forward.
Okay. I guess at this point, I don't have any additional information. I would hope, though, we had quite the discussion on this last week, and I'm hoping that we can get to some conclusion of at least coordinating our activities and assisting the lake districts on keeping our waters as clean as possible. And I think they do a big piece of that. And I know one of my concerns is over 50% of the money raised by their LMD districts goes to administrative overhead rather than treatment of the lakes themselves. And I think that's a big concern, and I believe the board will have further discussion about this. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to move off this item. Then that's 5B and C. And item 6 is Superior Court. Amendment to Toxicology Services Contract with Cordant Healthcare Solutions.
For your proposal, Commissioner, is for your consideration to extend current contract that we have with the regional Superior Court has with the Regional Toxicology Services, and the extension will be to until the end of April 30, 2021. And that extension will allow the courts to go through a bid process to secure the services in the long term.
Questions on this item from the board?
I guess I do have one question. There's not a requirement for an RFP, or this is a sole source, or?
No, Commissioner. The request is to extend the existing contract until April 30th, 2021. So that will give enough time to go through our request for proposals.
Okay, thank you.
When did this expire, or when was the contract to end initially?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When was the contract set to end?
The contract expires March 31st, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And item 7 is just our standing items report to the board and the county manager regarding schedule. And then we'll move into public hearings. We have Andrew Bond here. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you have 3 public hearings this afternoon, Commissioners, and those are the items related to the Development Code docket. You have some briefings related to this. One is docket item 820, which is related to permitting child care centers. The next public hearing is related to Development Code docket number CR1, which is the resorts and retreats over 100 acres. And just this morning, the board received public testimony in support of this item. That's the only one that I'm aware of. And the third public hearing is related to the Development Code docket number CR4, and that is related to commercial smokehouses. And for your consideration this afternoon is, depending on the public testimony you may receive, is a second action for your consideration. You don't have to approve those, but depending on the public testimony, there's an option for you, for the board, to go ahead and approve those items.
Okay, and just so for, I think this is our first set of these types of changes since Commissioner Mejia has been on board. So we basically will have a handout, and it'll have an option for a motion at the end. We may take action there, or we always have the prerogative to, we may hear stuff today that changes the complexion of the issue, or the board, for whatever reason, can decide not to take action and to consider it at a later time. But if that language is there in case it's the pleasure of the board to actually move forward and adopt the items today. So that's kind of a game time call, so to speak, or a decision we make in the moment based on the public hearings themselves. Anything from the board for Andrew regarding these three docket items?
Oh, no, sir, not for me.
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Andrew. Then we will move to our 4 p.m. Transportation Benefit District meeting. And we have a agenda here, and I will pass this to the president of the TBD. Walk us through.
Okay. So at 4 p.m., we'll call the meeting to order. Excuse me. We'll do the approval of the March 16th, 2021 agenda, and then we'll do the approval of the meeting minutes from October 20th, 2020. Item number 2 at 4:05 p.m., we'll have an opportunity for the public to address the board. Ramiro, on this one, it says 3 minutes per citizen. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll change that. I believe this should be 4 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Mr. Perez is in the room. I'm sure he'll provide public testimony this afternoon related to the Transportation Benefit District. So.
Item number 3 at 4:10, we'll have department items, starting with A. We'll ratify the election of the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District TC-TBD officers for 2021.
Scott?
Yes, good morning, Scott Lindblom, County Engineer. The first item, number 3A, is the ratification of the election of the Transportation Benefit District officers. And on January 5th of this year, the Board of County Commissioners nominated Commissioner Carolina Mejia as president, Commissioner Gary Edwards as vice president, and Commissioner Ty Menzer as board member for the 2021 TBD. Would you like me to go on to the next item?
Are there any questions, Commissioner Menzer?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Just,
We got the county manager's hand up here.
Yes, County Manager.
just not necessarily a question, but a comment. The Board of County Commissioners ratified the election of officers early in the year, I believe within your first meeting in January. And the next step is really to ratify it on the different boards. As you ratified the assignments on the Board of Health, since this is the first meeting of the Transportation Benefit District, you need to ratify the appointments the Board of County Commissioners did back in January 5th, 12th, 2021. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item B, 2020 Thurston County Transportation Benefit District Annual Report. And
Yes, thank you. So this is an item that we do every year and is required by the TBD, is to provide an annual report outlining the expenses and revenues generated by the TBD for, in this case, for 2020. As you're aware, the TBD has not enacted a revenue source, so at this point, the revenue is zero. Expenditures are very minor to really facilitate the meeting we had in 2020. And at the end of that, we will make a recommendation to move and accept the report and direct staff to post its availability in the newspaper of record for the county.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Scott, will that also include, okay, so our debt from this earlier meeting, but will it have the debt from prior meetings so we could have an accumulated number as to what we're up against?
Yes, it does have that, and we can make sure we walk through that as well.
Okay, thank you.
And also as part of your report, you will include a request from Commissioner Edwards, an update on the sunshade.
Yeah, right at the conclusion of that item 3B, we'll provide a brief update on the sand shed, correct?
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
No.
Okay, moving on to item C. Presentation of the 2020 Transportation Year in Review and 2021 Transportation Capital Construction, Maintenance, and Preservation.
Yes, thank you. So this item will be a look back at the capital projects completed by Public Works in 2020 and a look ahead at construction, maintenance, and preservation programs planned for this year for 2021. And no action will be requested. It's informational only.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Mensah? Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and so item number 4, it's the adjournment. So that would conclude our meeting. Passing it back to Chair Mensah.
Thank you. Next on our agenda for the work session is item 5, which is a review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for March 23rd. That meeting will be called to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia, approval of the agenda and board meeting minutes from today, if appropriate. At 2:05, presentation for Timberland Regional Library, State of the Library, with Cheryl Haywood, the Executive Director of the Regional Library, Timberland Regional Library.
Yeah, this will be a yearly presentation by Cheryl Haywood, as you stated, is the Executive Director for the Timberland Regional Library. And it's always, for me at least, is a pleasure to hear what the Regional Library has been done. And she brings an incredible energy. So you will hear from her some of the programs that she's implemented, as well as some of the satellite small locations. And I believe one is located that she's planning to do in the Capitol Mall. So it's all good stuff that she's going to be bringing and presenting to the board. I believe she's going to provide this update via Zoom, but hopefully next year she will provide an in-person update. So.
Okay, great. I just helped my daughter figure out how to check out ebooks from the library through her phone, and so it's off and running. So it's stuff to read. Commissioner Mejia or Edwards, anything on this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. We'll have opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update. Anything there, Romero?
I will follow up with any comments that you may receive this afternoon, Commissioner.
Okay. The consent agenda only contains the voucher list, so we will address those next Tuesday if the board has any questions or concerns. And then we'll move to department items. Medic 1, 4A. Medic 1 agreement with Olympia Fire Department for fire department vehicle repair and maintenance services.
For your consideration, I'm sorry.
I said I see Kurt Harden's here on that one.
For your consideration, Commissioner, this is an agreement with the Olympia Fire Department for the maintenance and services of Medic 1 EMS vehicles. The purpose is to allow the City of Olympia through the Fire Department to provide maintenance and repair services to Thurston County Medic 1 for a paramedic unit apparatus owned and operated by Thurston County. Thurston County Medic 1 does not have really the sufficient resources to provide the services. This is, I believe, a continuation of the program, the contract we have with the Olympia Fire Department in this proposal before you goes through December 31st, 2022. And Kurt, the Emergency Services Director, who also manages Medic One, is here to answer any questions.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Kurt. Questions, Commissioner Mejia?
Is the Olympia Fire Department the only one who provides these services?
The Olympia Fire Department only provides the services within Thurston County. And so therefore it's a local service. And plus, since they are fully aware of the equipment that we have and they have similar equipment, then it makes sense for us to enter into this agreement. And it's also an agreement that we've had in the past and we're just renewing the agreement.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay, good as well. Go to 4B, set public hearing for ordinance relating to property taxes for Medic One emergency medical care and services.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. For your consideration is for you to set a public hearing, for you to receive public testimony for a potential ballot measure for the August 3rd, 2021 special election to reauthorize the regular property taxes to support Medic One activities. As a matter of history, back in 1974, the voters of Thurston County authorized a Medic One levy through periodically reauthorized the levy. And periodically since reauthorized the levy. In 1999, the voters of Thurston County made this levy permanent. So that was the last time the voters of Thurston County approved this levy. Over the last few years, at least since I've been in this position, we have seen the funds of Medic One, taking a little bit of a slow decline. They have taken some of the reserves to make ends meet. And I believe that is a good approach how the EMS Council, as well as Kurt Harding and his staff, and to manage the current conditions. Now, that approach is no longer sustainable. And there is a need for the voters to consider supporting this on a long-term basis. So this particular ballot measure, again, is for your consideration to be placed on the August 3rd, 2021 primary ballot. It will restore the Medic One levy to the previously voted approval of 50 cents per $1,000 valuation. The EMS Council supported this particular proposal, and they provided a briefing to the Board of County Commissioners back in January 13, 2021. And Kurt Harding is here to answer any questions.
Kurt, anything to add to Ramiro's overview?
The only thing I would add is the draft resolution has been reviewed by Elizabeth Petrich and Nancy Nearest and for language, appropriate language, and they approved the final language in the draft resolution.
Commissioners, questions for Kurt or comments?
No questions for me. Thank you.
I do have a question for Kurt. Kurt, could you give us just a thumbnail description of how this decision has been extended over the last couple of years due to budget, and what was the vote by the EMS group to move this forward to the county commissioners?
Sure. So what's been taking place over the last number of years is the current millage on the Medic One levy is 28.9 cents. The voters in 1999 authorized it at 50 cents. And because of the cap by state law on the amount of revenue that can be collected for this levy, the millage has been slowly decreasing over time down to where it is now 28.9 cents. The cost of EMS within the county has been going up. If you look nationally at the healthcare costs, which EMS is a part of that, that's risen at an average of about 5% over the last 10 years, yet the cap is 1% that comes in for additional revenue from the levy. So therefore, there's been an imbalance in the revenue coming in and the budget going out. But we have been extending the life of the funds in there by ensuring that we get all of our equipment, take it all the way out to its end of life expectancy. We've increased the number of years in our medic units that we can maintain before we have to replace the medic units. So we've been doing a lot of good stewardship of the taxpayer dollar by stretching these dollars out. But we've gotten to the point now where we're reaching that crossover where we're either gonna have to cut the budget significantly and reduce services or go back out to the voters. So that's where we are today. And the EMS Council recommended this go in front of the voters and in front of the Board of County Commissioners unanimously. It was a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. It'd be good to get public testimony on that, and that would be a proposal to set that for April 13th.
Correct.
For folks to track. Okay. And then we're at item 5, which will just be the standing items at the tail end of our agenda. And we will at that point have a public hearing. 3 p.m. is the schedule, although that can flex based on the length of the board meeting. 3 p.m. or thereabouts will be an auditor's item, precinct boundary changes and county commissioner district legal description.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. You receive a briefing from the auditor's office related to the what we call as a regular updates on some precinct boundaries, and that's really an attempt from the auditor's office to balance the population between the many different districts. You will be receiving public testimony related to 11 precinct boundary line adjustments, and also creating 1 new precinct as a result of this update. And the ordinance includes legal descriptions for County Commissioner District Number 1. It's just adjusting legal description, doesn't adjust the boundary itself. It's just aligning the legal description with the line itself. Now, just a matter of clarification, you also receive a briefing last week related to the larger update of the Board of County Commissioners districts that needs to occur at the end of this year. That is a separate issue. That is a separate action the board needs to take later in the year as a result of the 2020 census population data that we'll be receiving at the end of September. This is more of a housekeeping items the auditor is doing. You're muted, sir.
Questions on this item?
No, sir.
No,
Okay.
sir.
All right, so now I'm lost in my paper here. We've completed then that agenda for Tuesday, March 23rd, which means we've completed item 5 on today's work session agenda, and we're up to item 6, proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. There are no proclamations for review today.
Item 7, advisory boards and commissions.
There is 1 new application for review today for the reappointment of Pat Labine of the Oyster Bay Farm for the Agricultural Advisory Committee as a farmer member. Pat has served on the committee for nearly 15 years, and the committee supports the reappointment. Included as a review from last week are the applications from Josh Stottlemyre and Lynn Critchfield for the Agritourism Advisory Committee. And if there are no objections or questions, these appointments can be included on the agenda for next week, if you'd like.
Is the board comfortable having these 3 individuals approved on the March 23rd agenda?
I am.
Yes, me too.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
3 thumbs up for these folks. Thank you. All right, PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I'm happy to say the e-signature policy will be coming in front of you tomorrow in a briefing with the hopes of it coming before you for a vote early next month. If the policy is approved, IT will be looking at the requirements of the policy and needs of the county to find an application for electronic signatures. I met with the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and public health staff last week as the Regional Housing Council's communications team to discuss a communications plan. It was a very beneficial conversation, and I will begin drafting the communications plan based on our conversation. As with all communications plans, it's a fluid document, and as the Regional Housing Council moves through the planning process, the communications plan will be updated to meet the needs. And then lastly, next week, Commissioner Mejia will hold the first virtual episode of Coffee with the Commissioner. This is a live streamed conversation between a commissioner and their guest of choice to discuss their topic of choice. So on Monday, March 22nd, Commissioner Mejia will talk with the county's Economic Development Manager, Jenica Machado, about Thurston Strong and explore Jenica's job and its role in the Thurston County economy. So this event's already been shared through our weekly newsletter and posted on Facebook, with more than 35 people responded as interested so far. So we're looking forward to see how this goes. This is a new outreach tool for us, so we're excited to see how it works. And then already on the docket is Commissioner Menser for an episode in April. So if pending any questions, that's all I have for you today.
Questions for Megan?
No questions for me, thank you.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Legislative update with the county manager. Let's maybe do the legislative update and then we'll take a break.
Okay, thank you, sir. I am not going to go through the line by line item on your report, but I'd like just to highlight a couple of bills of interest. So on page 2, the Substitute House Bill 1069, which is concerning the local government fiscal flexibility, passed the House and it has moved to the Senate. It has an executive session scheduled for this Wednesday. Also, engross Substitute House Bill 1070, which modifies the allowed use of local taxes revenue for affordable housing and related services, also passed the House and is moving to the Senate. And I believe they had an executive session this morning. The next item that I'd like to highlight for you is on page 3. That will be the engross second Substitute House Bill 1152, and this related to supporting measures to create comprehensive public health districts. That passed the House, is currently on the Senate, and through the first reading that occurred last week, there has been a lot of engagement by Washington State Association of Counties, as well as the WASALFO, which is the Public Health Officials Association in the county. There has been some significant modifications to the bill, so it's not really what it was once introduced. Has changed significantly, and I believe Art Starry gave you last week the details as to where those changes have been in this bill. Moving on to page 4, that will be engross Substitute House Bill 1232, already passed the House, has a public hearing scheduled for tomorrow, and this related to planning for affordable housing under the Growth Management Act. In this case, it has been opposed. Also, the Washington State Association of Counties opposed this bill. And yesterday, I received an email that there has been a lot of amendments introduced. They has put the Washington State Association of Counties in the position to support it. Since I have not been able to look at the details of this bill, my recommendation is to change that position to neutral at this point. At the bottom of page 4, that will be the House Bill 1280, concerning green gas emissions reductions in the design of public facilities. This has passed the House, is going into the Senate. We'll have a public hearing this Wednesday at 10:30 in the morning. And this is really related to addressing public building construction, related to the LEED certified approach in order to address greenhouse gases related to public buildings. Moving on to page number 5, Substitute House Bill 1309, concerning the dates of certified of levies that passed the House, is moving to the Senate, and I believe that provides a little flexibility. And And Robin, I think, is happy or not happy about this bill, but it's moving forward.
It really won't make a difference in what we do because they didn't push the date far enough out.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Next, on page 6, and this is Substitute Senate Bill 105013 concerning local redistricting deadlines. And this is really related to how late we're going to be receiving the census data for 2020. Now it's scheduled for September, and that will put a very crunch time. The last time, I believe the county auditor was trying to ask for an amendment to this bill to extend to December 31st, 2021. I don't believe that amendment was included, so it still has the November deadline. So we still we have to see how this bill has an effect on our timelines, but again, it's extremely difficult to meet all the deadlines considering when we're going to be receiving the census data. And that was part of the briefing that we provided to you last Tuesday. And that's all the bills that I'd like to highlight this morning for your attention. Thank you.
Questions for Amiro on the legislative chapter?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then we'll take a recess. It's 10:17. We'll reconvene at 10:32. We'll pick up with item 10 on the agenda.
And 3, 2, 1, go ahead.
Okay, it's 10:32. We are back in session for the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session on March 16th. We had reached item 10 on today's agenda, which is briefing/public hearing decisions pending. Anything there, County Manager?
Nothing is pending, Commissioners.
Okay. Then we'll have Commissioner items is item 11. Number 1 is creation of a rainy fund. That doesn't sound good.
Thank you, Commissioners. You heard on a briefing 2 weeks ago a proposal for you to consider establishing a budget stabilization fund, also known as a rainy fund. And Robin walked you through what the proposal is, and she will walk you through again. In your packet is that resolution establishing, a draft resolution establishing this fund. Hopefully you had the opportunity to review it. Also attached in your packet is a letter from the county auditor as the chair of the financial management committee, which includes the county treasurer and the county managers, encouraging the board to considering approving the creation of this budget stabilization fund. Robin?
Thank you, Romero. So this would establish what's known as a rainy day fund. And the major components of this resolution is to establish $12 million as the minimum fund balance in the general fund to meet cash flow needs, to set a target of 2 months fund balance in the general fund, and that is roughly $18 million at this point in time. And that would be the amount that the board would strive to maintain. There are specific reasons to drop below that amount in the general fund, but that is a healthy fiscal fund balance. And then the third thing that this resolution does is to establish a budget stabilization fund, which is the official title for a rainy day fund, and to build that over time to a fund balance of $5 million. It would be a maximum deposit of $1 million in any given fiscal year. And the strategy of how to deposit money into that account, or where the money would come from to deposit into this account, is outlined in this resolution. It is windfall money that would go into the budget stabilization fund from tax revenues in excess of 5% growth, timber sales in excess of $600,000, and investment interest in excess of $2 million. So those are the major components, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Mejia.
Yes, Robin, I tend to be a little bit more conservative, I guess, when it says, when it comes to saving. And so I'm wondering why we're just, if the cash flow reserve is at 12 million, why wouldn't the goal for the rainy day fund or the budget stabilization fund be at $12 million as well? I feel like that would be an appropriate goal instead of 5 million.
So the rainy day fund is really intended to respond to true emergencies, complete unforeseen emergencies, such as a pandemic. And it would not have been enough to respond to a pandemic, I understand, but if we have an earthquake, it's much more common for floods, ice storms, windstorms. If the legislature passes a bill that has impact on the county of more than $500,000, this would be your go-to fund. Or if because of a severe economic downturn, the general fund balance dropped below 10 million because of revenue shortfalls. Then you would tap this fund. This is not intended to be a whole lot of money sitting. And one of the things to keep in mind is it's good to have a healthy fund balance, but in government, there's such a thing as too much money sitting in the fund balance, especially general fund. Because if you have too much money sitting in the fund, it means that you're collecting too much in taxes. The legislature sets that at roughly $40 million. I can look up the formula if you'd like to know it. But you really don't want what would be roughly 20 to 25% of your general fund sitting unusable in these reserves.
Thank you. 5 million to me doesn't seem like very much, especially if we were to have, I mean, just in the pandemic, you know, just thinking back and, but I see where you're coming from. I still feel the 5 million is might be just a little too low for us to aim at, but I have no problem with it.
So again, ideally 5 million is on top of 18 million that's sitting in your general fund. So it's not just 5 million. It's really, when you combine the two, it's more like 23 to 24 million.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, on this resolution that we're working on, what's our cash flow reserve right now?
Right now, we have, by the financial responsibility resolution that the board adopted last year, I believe sets that at $12 million. So this resolution reinforces that 12 million.
So we're going to continue that at 12 million, basically,
12 million.
is what that talks about.
We can eke by with 10 million, but there have been months where we've been, when we maintain a $10 million cash flow balance, there have been months when we have dropped down into the red.
And let's see, I have a question on your, on number 5, that's on the back page of the resolution. In any year, the budget stabilization fund has a balance below 5 million. So what would it be? Maybe referring to Commissioner Mejia's comments about the dollar amount maybe not being enough. So that says below 5 million. So is there a between 5 million and 6 million? Or I'm just wondering if there's a way to designate that.
So I am suggesting to you that you cap the budget stabilization fund at $5 million at this time. And the deposit would be made at the end of the year in any year when that fund does not have $5 million in it. So like you're about to establish the fund. Let's say you establish the fund today. We're closing a fiscal year right now. I would suggest that we transfer $1 million at the close of 2020 into the fund. So it would have $1 million in it. Next year, at the end of the year, at the end of 2021, I'd look at the fund balance. There's $1 million. Okay, we're going to transfer any windfall money, and I'd calculate the windfall amount, transfer that in. And I would do that every year for the next, let's say that we have $1 million in windfall each year for the next 5 years. That would put us in 2024 I would look at the fund balance and say, oh, there's 5 million sitting there. I'm not going to do a transfer this year. And let's say in 2027, there's some huge emergency and we transfer money out. So in any given year, I'd be looking, did we use some of it? Do I need to replenish it? Does it have the full balance in it?
Under 5, again, on that back page, A, B, and C, is that what you're looking at for that windfall?
Yes, that defines the windfall for us.
And that may be a good point because that is a strategy to get up to the 5 million. When the fund reaches the 5 million, those strategies will stop. That is
Right.
that is the intent of the language. The U.S. State Commissioner Edwards has fund balance below 5 million. So all that strategies below 5 million will apply until reach that level, and then will stop.
So to get to the 5 million, you're advocating a period of time, but we don't know exactly what that is?
Yes, up to, you know, it'll take about 5 or 6 years, depending on what our revenue is, to get up to the 5 million. Now, in the general fund balance, we'll be carrying, we currently have estimated fund balance at the end of this year at $29 million. We're going to spend that down, the appropriation this year, if it hadn't been for new federal money. We would have spent that down because your appropriation is more than the anticipated revenue, COVID aside. So what I'm advocating is you carry a fund balance in the general fund of at least 18 million, and you slowly build up this budget stabilization fund over time. You're the board. You could choose to put 5 million in right now. That's up to you. But I'm proposing a resolution that builds toward financial sustainability.
And this is all dollars that are in the general fund or would pass through the general fund? I mean, it's nothing that we're dealing with today or talking about today has to do with some of those protected funds, road fund and different things like that. Is that right?
Correct. This is focused on the general fund.
What are our normal excise taxes for forest products?
So they are extremely unpredictable. I've seen a year when we've collected less than 100,000. And then last year, I think we collected 1.2 million. And it ranges. There's not an average year.
Also on the sweep that we do, that kind of depends on the interest rate, I take it. Is that right? So different years are going to be different.
Yep. Interest rates, fund balances, and the funds that we take the interest from, those are all variables. And we budget $2 million. We depend on $2 million, but everything over that is a windfall.
So just as an example, what was it for 2020?
I will pull that up. It'll just take me a minute to pull it up, Commissioner.
Okay. And well, the bubble that I've been talking about for a few years, I mean, we're going to try and figure that out at some point, I guess, but on that 5% growth on 5A, what was our growth in 2020? What did that end up being? We should have maybe we've got the whole year. I don't know if we've got the whole year or not. But.
The accruals have just been posted and I haven't pulled it since that. That's, again, I need to pull that up. So give me a minute. On the interest earnings, this year we collected $2,141,000. So a little over $2 million in interest this year. That would be item 5C. The sales tax. Looking at $2020.
Did we get our accrual back from December now? Are we that far along?
Yeah, but I'm looking at actual cash in the door. It's so I got to do a little math here. So growth in 2020 was 7.91%.
And does that cover the accrual portion? Did we finally get all the total year?
So I would have to look to see what the accrual is. That is counting actual cash in the door compared year over year.
I think it's going to actually be more.
Add the accrual,
it'll be more, won't it?
Years and do all the adjustments and let's see. I think that the accruals have been posted at this point. While I look that up, are there any other questions?
I have questions, but I don't know if Commissioner Edwards was going to.
No, go ahead.
So can you describe on 6B what is meant by an adverse action by the legislature since you're excluding unfunded mandates? What is that? What am I to understand that to be?
So that is any action that the legislature takes that is going to cost the county money that they don't fund. So basically, yes, unfunded mandates.
But it says not including unfunded mandates.
Yeah, that was my question as well.
So what's not
including unfunded. That is because I think I left unfunded mandates, something that you could tap with a simple majority vote. It's not explicit. So thank you for catching that. We should clarify that. That should be including unfunded mandates, not including.
I have a question for the county manager.
Yes, sir.
We okay?
Yep.
Because the seriousness of this, I see on our agenda, we're talking about discussion and a decision. And I question if we're giving this adequate time to do that in just a few minutes. So what's the goal here?
So thank you for that, Commissioner. The reason that I added this, because this resolution was introduced to you 2 weeks ago. And at that time, I suggested perhaps take the time to review the resolution the last 2 weeks. I'll come back this item today. This is just a suggestion by staff. By no means you feel that you have to provide a decision, meaning the decision that we're looking for, if you like to direct the staff to bring this as for us to have an NIS, for you to take a formal action at a later Board of County Commissioners meeting. This not necessarily said you approve the resolution, it just provides direction, a decision to move forward. That helps?
Yes, that helps. I mean, the decision to move forward, that doesn't bother me, that as long as we're going to have additional discussion. I really think we need to spend some time on it to where we're having some more in-depth discussion, that's all. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know how if that makes sense to my seatmates, or I don't like rushing in. I know we've had this for a couple of weeks, but this is our first in-depth discussion on it.
Okay, well, I would say yes and no to that in terms of back when we were debating the budget principles 2 years ago, Robin was talking about that she was going to be making a proposal for a rainy day fund, and I was a vigorous advocate for that. And it's taken quite a while to sort of get the proposal into black and white. And of course, the pandemic sort of disrupted a lot of what we were planning to do with our budget. But now we're in a position where we can start to think about this. So I agree that the exact details that are on here are newish, but the concept has been discussed by the board for the whole time that I've been on the board. So I would definitely want to move forward. How that looks, what the next steps are, I'm open to hearing the proposal from County Manager or Commissioner Edwards or whatever you'd like to see. But I definitely would like to keep exploring this and fine-tuning it and getting it adopted. I'm very comfortable with kind of the way it's structured now that I've seen it, because I looked at it pretty carefully after last week's meeting, or 2 weeks ago, I think it was.
Yeah. So I guess if I made the direction of the board is provide a direction to staff to bring AIS to a formal board meeting for you to take a formal action. You're not taking a formal action and approving this resolution today. It's just reviewing it, give you the opportunity to discuss as you have. And then if the board feels comfortable to move forward, then the next step will be a formal item on one of your Board of County Commissioners meetings for you to consider taking a formal action creating this fund.
I had one other question, and then I'll circle back to my commissioner. He has one too. So my second question was, I guess I'm just trying to make sure I understand. The budget has so many different compartments and components, and we're trying to fit it all into one scheme that has, logic and sense to it. And Commissioner Edwards made that point about the interest, which is a good question. And I guess my question is about the sweeps out of the road fund and diversion, and kind of how that component fits into this. I mean, here we are earmarking these windfalls, so to speak, with one hand, but with the other hand, potentially, if we don't change course, we're robbing the road fund, so to speak, with those strategies, which we never dealt with head on in our budget principles in either document, as far as I could tell. I know the board expressed the interest to kind of, at a minimum of $250,000 per year, to draw that down, but I just want to make sure that, I guess my question is, if we adopted this today, does it bear on or affect in any way the decisions we would make about the future of the road fund and those shifts that we've been doing for the last several years?
I do not think that it bears on that. I do think that building the fund slowly over time, part of the reason that you would do that instead of one fell swoop is to leave enough money in the general fund so that you can do other things like reduce the diversion or address the needs of the county offices and departments to provide services to a growing population. I mean, there are other things you need to do, which is why I don't suggest doing this all at once. And so I guess the only bearing it would have on reducing the transfer from the road fund is doing the stabilization fund slowly over time creates capacity for you to do those other things.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mejia, you had some.
Yeah, my question was kind of along the same as yours, Commissioner Mentzer. For me, I see it in a different perspective of we have the money now, so why not put it in a little bit more? I was thinking maybe let's put 2 million now, and then just in the coming years, if let's say things are down and we're not really able to put it, at least we have it at a higher balance now than later on. I just feel like with right now it's kind of unpredictable of how the coming years are going to be. So why not put in just a little bit more now, and that way the next couple of years while we're dealing with the unpredictable, it's easier to manage.
So Robin, could there, just to follow through that thought, could there be an additional sentence that basically doesn't change the scheme in terms of future transfers not to exceed $1 million, but you could have an additional provision that said there'll be the board will put an initial $2 million as a starting point for the fund, so to speak. And then everything else that you've got there would be, it sounds kind of like maybe what Commissioner Mejia was angling toward. Correct me if I got that wrong.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, of course you can do that.
That's something to think about.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess when I ask for further discussion before we do anything, I'm not arguing any of the points that have been made, but it bothers me because this is one of the question you asked, Commissioner Mentzer, was one of my big questions was on 6C, if you will, on the not including unfunded mandates. The whole, that whole thing kind of seemed contradictory. And on the sales tax revenue, I think we're going to be up over that, what are we, 7.9 or something? But anyway, I think we're going to be up over the 8% when we get that final number. I would just like to see a draft presented to us that's addressed any concerns that we've brought up here and be able to discuss that. I'd like to have something presented that the answer is, I don't, that is not an answer that says, I don't know, or I need to redo this. And I'm not being critical of staff. I'm just saying I want to get it fixed prior to us making a decision on it. So I'd like to have just future discussion. And I've got no argument with Commissioner Mejia's suggestion. I think that we are obligated to do the best we can when we can do it. But there are some other things I'd like to have discussions on. And here we are, you know, this is the first issue of our commissioner's item discussion today. So it seems like we never get done. And that's an issue in itself, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Go ahead, Robin.
So I've heard two things to change. One under 6B to take not out of including unfunded mandates, and to add a clause where the initial deposit will be $2 million. Were there other changes?
I'm interested in that sales tax, a total picture on that.
So I have that now.
Oh, you do? Okay, what did we end up with there?
The growth, including the accruals, is 9%.
Okay.
So fleshing out that point, just so I understand Commissioner Edwards' point, that would be under 5A, where it says sales tax revenue in excess of 5% growth. So because this year or last year we were above 5%, we would be able to take $500,000 max and shift it into the stabilization fund.
Correct.
And that would be the same if it was 7% or 15%. It's capped at 500,000 if we exceed that threshold.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that piece.
Right. And the three items combined can't exceed $1 million.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe we just, I don't think this has to be approved today. If Commissioner Edwards wants to set this on for a commissioner item in say 2 weeks, just to kind of, so he can think through and review, and all of us can do the same, just before we give it the push forward. I don't have a problem with that, but unless there's a time issue that I'm not seeing.
No.
I think I want to continue to push forward. I just didn't want to make the decision right now, that's all.
Okay.
So I guess what what I'm hearing is you want me to bring this item for further conversation, or you want me to bring this item as an AIS, which at that point you also will have conversations. I'd like a clarification as to what the board would like to do.
I think I'm good with the AIS in a couple of weeks. I think we'll have, I hope we'll have time to raise any questions about it between now and then.
Does that work for you, Commissioner Mejia?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. So you will see this item in the AIS, and again, you will review that item the week prior and also on the week of, or you consider taking an action. So it will give you the opportunity to review and ask additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Let's see. That takes us to item 2, 2021 budget calendar.
Thank you, commissioners. On the initial conversation of the budget that was presented to you back in January 28, 2021, Robin presented to you the budget development calendar that includes all the many different items the board needs to consider, included on the back page, on the second page, all the different steps that you need to take in terms of public hearings and actually ultimately leading to the budget adoption, which is prior to December 31st, 2021. And what I would like to have the board today is considering approval of this calendar, and this will give us the green light to continue implementing the different days outlined on this calendar.
I have a question on this.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So are we going to be done then on December 17th? Is that what I'm seeing here?
That is the plan.
That's the plan.
Commissioner Mejia, anything to address here? A little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Commissioner Howard.
Under Department Capital and Operating Budget Development, where it says Questica is ready for change request entry, does that mean that's going to be all done by June 17th? And it's, what does that really refer to?
So there are technical changes. Questica is our budget system.
Mm-hmm.
And there are technical changes that you have to do within the system to roll it, if you will, from one budget year to the next. There are a lot of preparation items that we do behind the scenes, like around personnel and internal service costs, quite a few different things. So on June 17th, what this is saying is that Questica is ready for offices and departments to go into the system and enter their budget request for the board.
So, I mean, that's what we're hearing, is that on the 17th of June, it will be ready, or is it ready right now? And that's when they're going to start accepting it.
It is not ready now.
So
It
we're
will be
still
ready on
gambling.
17th. There's a lot of work that staff have to do to get it ready between.
And that will be done. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean,
That is yes.
I mean, I see then, no later than August 6th, we enter according to the RCW and stuff. So I guess I'm just questioning whether or not it is or it's going to be, and it sounds like it's going to be ready by the 17th.
Unless, barring some disaster, it will be ready.
Yeah, that's the word, it will be.
It will be ready. Yeah. Having lived through this all the way back into the Y2K era, I was told right along, it's going to be ready. Yep, we're going to be ready. And yep, we're going to be ready. And we never did get ready. So that's the only reason I'm asking that question. I don't know enough about it to answer anything in particular, or ask anything in particular.
So perhaps Questica is the software that we use in preparation for the budget. And this Questica has been ready in the past 2-3 years, I believe, when all the offices and departments submitted their requests. So we're not creating a new environment. The environment has already been in place for the last 3 years. What it does is just building enough data when it comes June 17 to somewhat open the doors in the system for offices and departments to start loading their particular request for the board to consider later on. That's really what it states on this item.
Okay. I mean, there's quite a few dates in here that refer to Questica, and that's why I'm wondering if it is ready or going to be. That always kind of bugs me. And your explanation, I mean, that does make sense. So that's the way it is. That's the way it is, I guess.
So may I add an additional comment, commissioners?
Go ahead.
So I know the decision, an annual versus biannual budget is still need to be made by the board. And in fact, I believe Robin will give you some perspective, hopefully tomorrow, in the elected officials meeting as to what the results of the survey are. So I want to emphasize that this calendar does not change whether it's an annual or biannual budget. I just want to make sure that I bring that into the conversation, because this budget development calendar applies to either it's an annual or biannual budget. So you're not committing at this point by approving this calendar to either one of the two, annual or biannual.
Okay. I'm good for the approval.
Okay. Anything, Commissioner Mejia? You good?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I am too.
That was a very lukewarm approval. So I assume there is a approval by all 3 board members.
Yeah, I guess so.
Lukewarm, but absolutely appropriate and on point.
So this allows us to all, set our calendar for the coming year. We know when the presentations will be. We can plan for if we could travel, we could plan vacations. So this is very important, and thank you.
So on that point, Robin, out of this 2-page list of dates, is there a date that you'd be saying, and again, I know the let's just say from now through the end of September, because I know it gets hot and heavy in October and November, but from now through the end of September, is there a date where commissioners should not be absent?
So there is also quite a bit going on in September. Through the end of August, the board doesn't have big parts. There is in June, not on a set date, but at some point in June, we will schedule time for any office and department who wants to do increases to rates or fees. We will present the internal service rates on July 13th. And then it's staff work up until September 7th, when we will deliver the preliminary budget that is the office and department request to the board. And then on the 8th and 9th, we'll conduct budget work sessions. So that first week in September is important. And then we hit October and it's all budget all the time.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Can we move on, County Manager?
Yes, thank you, sir. The next item for you is for you to consider an extension to a grant from the Conservation Futures, and this is related to the James Family Farm. The board approved granting $132,300 to the Community Farm Land Trust, and it was to help secure 29 acres located in James Road, just south of Rochester. The total cost of the acquisition is $201,500. And as you know, any real estate transaction takes time. In the grantee, Community Farm Land Trust is requesting the board to extend the Conservation Futures grant of $132,300 through March 31st, 2021. I'm sorry, that's not to extend it to September 30th, 2021. The current expiration is March 31st, 2021. So the request is to move that from March 31st, 2021 through March 30th, to September 30th, 2021. And I'm just mixing my dates this morning. So the request is, again, to extend this grant application expenditures from March 31st, 2021 through September 30th, 2021, I believe.
Is that your recommendation, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm good with it.
And Andrew DeFovis is the one who, the staff who manages the Conservation Futures and is available to answer any questions.
Andy, do you have any concerns about this request, or does this make sense from your perspective?
It does make sense from my perspective. Good morning, Andrew DeFovis, Community Planning and Economic Development. I don't have any concerns about this. When we seek applications, the proponents will give us their best estimate of when they think a project will wrap, and that's what these dates are based on. As the county manager stated, real estate transactions are complicated and sometimes they simply need more time. This is the first such request we've received for this project. They've made progress to date and it's just not quite there yet. So based on my review, it's a standard extension request.
Okay. Commissioner Mejia, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Good to go.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So you will see a letter circulating for your signature. Thank you.
Okay.
Next item is a Family Support Center grant request. Let me give you a little bit of perspective on this. The Family Support Center of South Sound is currently has been working with the federal U.S. Department of Justice Office of Violence Against Women grant. So back in they tried to secure a grant for 2021. And the intent of this grant is improving criminal justice responses to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking grant programs. The Family Support Center has received this grant, which helps the Family Support Center since 2015. Back in 2015, secure $449,913, and in 2018, they secure $448,565. All that is coordinated with partners here in Thurston County. That includes the Thurston County Clerk, the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, the Thurston County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. So this particular request is to the board to consider supporting a $499,000, almost $500,000. They will go from 2021 to 2024 to continue the services the Family Support Center provides. It requires two pieces of documents as in 2015 as well as 2018. The chair of the board signs a letter supporting this particular grant and committing to provide assistance to family support centers to carry on the duties. It also includes a signature of the Board of County Commissioners chair on the MOU, which includes all the partners that are just listed here in the county. The clerk's office, the clerk signs this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, as well as the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Thurston County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. I just want to bring this to your attention. This is something that the county has supported in the past. If the board will concur with this approach, I will have the documents ready for the chair to sign. There is a deadline of March 22 as to when we need to submit those back to Family Support Center.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
And this is just a continuation. I mean, all this information that's included in here is information that's been there all along on these different grant applications. Is that right?
That is correct. The first time was in 2015 when they received this grant. So since, in a couple of occasions, they have come back to the county. First in 2015, the second in 2018. So it's a continuation.
So maybe other than some of the verbiage about dates or anything, everything else is probably the same, isn't it?
I checked, and it's pretty much the same as the one the board approved back in 2018.
I'm okay with it.
What's the magnitude of this grant? You know?
They're requesting $499,938.
Any other questions, Commissioner Mejia, anything?
So this is I'm trying to get all my ducks in a row. This is a federal grant that they applied for, and they need basically a certification of eligibility from us.
Right. Yes, that is correct. As a jurisdiction supporting this effort. Yeah.
Okay, then, yeah, I don't have any questions. I think it's great.
Okay, so I will have those documents for your signature, Commissioner Messer.
Robin has them.
The copy that I have appears to be missing every other page.
I was wondering about that as well. I think I'm in that same category.
Oh, I apologize. Well, obviously I have a full copy, so.
Okay, well, I'm missing some. How's that?
So I apologize. You like to hold the decision until I'll give you a full copy?
I'm fully in support of the decision. I
support condition on no inappropriate inflammatory statements on the page that I don't have that I'm going to be signing my name to.
So you're missing some as well, right, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I'm not arguing the whole concept of what we're doing. I think we're doing it right. I just, something was missing, that's all.
Yes, good. Thank you.
I'm still with you, though.
Okay.
Very good.
We'll move forward with a full version.
Public testimony, item 5.
I don't have anything to follow up, Commissioner, specifically related to the planning and permitting fees. I have already addressed that, so.
Okay, other commissioner items. Item 6. Commissioner Mejia, anything to bring?
I had a letter, I don't know, is this going to be addressed? It's the Chili Santa material shed in South parking lot. I had this in my packet, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was just an update for me, I think.
No, that is going to be, should have been included as part of the TBD agenda in the back. So that will be provided to you this afternoon.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's the update on the sunshine.
okay.
I clipped it to my TBD agenda because that's where I think it goes.
It was just clicked to my general packet, so I was wondering. Okay. I do not have other commissioner items.
Commissioner Evans.
Yes. This most recent letter that we got from Mr. Pettit, I don't know if it was maybe yesterday morning. Anything that the county manager, I mean, could enlighten us on some of that stuff?
I believe Josh Cummins responded to the latest correspondence. He was asking, right?
I guess I'm just wondering on when we talk about fees and policies and implementation, is that a big deal? I mean, that I guess because we're going to need to have it if we're going to talk about fees and all that stuff.
So I'm sorry, help me out with your question, Commissioner.
Well, one of the issues was the information that Mr. Pettit wanted about, because he's actually digging into this whole fees and structure. And I have to say, I'm very concerned about what we are doing. And I know we are talking about reviewing it. And I hate to withhold that kind of information for a month from somebody. I don't know how long it's going to take to get it to him on Open Public Meetings Act or whatever he's applying under. I don't know why we couldn't have that same information the same as any citizen so that we could be more informed. I want to be more informed about what's taken place. The allegation is that it's 2 to 3 times the length of time to get responses, and the fees are 2 to 3 times higher. And in my talking with affected citizens, they seem to agree 100% that all of this is a fact, and I'd just like to know more about it right, without delay, I guess. So, can we get that stuff? Yeah, I'm done. I mean, I'm looking for some answers as we move forward.
Yeah, Commissioner, I believe the latest letter from Mr. Pettit, he sent Monday, March 15 at 8:54 in the morning. And Josh responded in the afternoon, in the morning at 10:46 to Mr. Pettit requesting to that. But also, Mr. Pettit states the public records request. That's a process that we have in the county, and we're required to provide any public records as requested by any citizen. But also, we receive on a daily basis many public records from many citizens related to many aspects of the county business. And I don't know if Mr. Pettit is arguing that perhaps his request is more important than any other request the rest of the public's requesting for us to put a priority on that. And so we're responsive and we're responsible to provide information to any citizen. So we're not treating Mr. Pettit any different than any other citizen who requests public records here in the county.
Okay, I guess just as a follow-up, yes, I realize that we do get many requests, but it seems like this board of county commissioners is, I don't know if you want to call it aligned with the concerns that Mr. Pettit brings up, but I know I am very much concerned that we are charging more than, I'll just say more than all the other jurisdictions around us. I know I always hear that, well, maybe they're doing subsidy or something out of the general fund. I don't know the answers to all that, but I think that his request is very much in line with what we're trying to do. And I've heard from staff that we've got some kind of a study coming back. I don't know the time frame on that study about if we are in fact way out of line. And I do feel we're out of line just what I hear from my constituents. And I think it ties in with so many things that we're interested in, affordable housing, and there's not going to be any such thing as affordable housing if we keep dinging the citizens as they try to move forward. So that's kind of where I'm at on this thing. Why, if we're aligned with something that a citizen wants anyway, I want it too. I want that information so that I can talk intelligently about it when I get asked by a constituent, what about this or what about that? And if we do have a policy that says X, Y, or Z, I'd like to know it.
Right, I will let the other two board members to respond whether they are aligned to Mr. Pettit's comments or not. I'm not here to respond on those terms. But I have addressed this issue that in fact we are preparing a briefing related to how the fees are established here in the county. And that briefing is coming up. And also you will be seeing an AIS, request for proposals for you to consider secure the services as a consultant to do a fee study. I have met with staff from Public Works, CPED, and Public Health, and we're going to expedite the request for proposals to secure those services with the hope that at least we will have a draft ready when you have those budget conversations later in the year.
Okay, I don't know how much later they're going to be, but I would like to see, I don't know, the authority on adjusting the rates, if it's cost of living or whatever it is, and some of those policy issues that are being requested by a citizen. I'd like to see them myself. I hate to wait until we get to whatever time frame fits. It does, because usually that doesn't give us time to review. So I don't know. I respect your position that you're saying we're going to get it. Any ideas about when this is going to take place or later in the year? I mean, I know we're all busy. But...
So what I responded was, and related to a request for public records that Mr. Pettit made. So I'm not responding. If you request any specific information from staff, let me know what you need and we'll provide it to you. My response was specifically to public records that Mr. Pettit made.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Any other items, Commissioner Edwards, to bring to the board this morning?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I don't have anything either, so we'll be back in session at 2 p.m. for our regular board meeting, and we are adjourned.